Hi everyone, this is our channel, Around My Story. Please like, share and subscribe.
A vindictive ghost. Love is the biggest treasure in my life. Good memories, exciting adventures, happiness, sadness, dreams. All these matter and help people endure suffering in their lives. My name is Alex. I'm 18 years old and currently in the 12th grade. I used to live in a small remote village with my parents. I was their only child. My parents raised me well, educated me, and taught me good manners. I see the fruits of their labor in me in every difficult situation I face. For example, after I was murdered, I knew exactly what to do. Intrigued? Are you eager to hear my story? Let's go. When my father received a promotion, we moved from our small village to the big city. I had many nice memories of that little remote village. I had many friends there that I used to play, joke, and laugh with. I feel like I left half of my soul in that village. My father bought us a nice home in a quiet neighborhood. I liked the place the moment we arrived. Our neighbors were nice, and they offered to help us move in. I liked them all. I felt that I would make many new friends in my new neighborhood. One day, I went to the supermarket to buy some necessities for my mum, when suddenly, I bumped into a girl named Rachel. We were coincidentally buying the same item, and there was only one left. I got to it first, but seeing that she wanted it also, like a true gentleman, I offered it to her instead. Initially, she politely declined, but then she gladly accepted my kind gesture in the end. I ended up walking her home and discovered that she was my neighbor. I fell in love with her at first sight. Once we arrived at her home, we said goodbye, and she said she would see me tomorrow. I wanted time to pass quickly so I could see her again. As I was walking to school the next day, I met her along the way and we walked together. I was overjoyed. After arriving at school, she introduced me to her friends, and then I went to my class. The teacher's aide welcomed me and directed me to my class. When I entered the class, I was surprised to see Rachel there. She was in my class. I entered the class and sat in a desk on the last row. During a class break, Rachel was sitting with her friends. When she saw me sitting alone, she left her friends and came over and sat with me. Suddenly, a boy named Mario, older than us, entered the class with a group of his cohorts. They looked like a gang of thugs to me. He said to me, "Hey, you, if you want to live, you'd best stay away from Rachel." Rachel seemed afraid and was visibly shaking at this point. I told him, "If you're trying to pick a fight, creep, I'm ready." He grabbed me by my collar and threw me onto a desk, then turned around and quickly left. Rachel explained, "He wants to date me, but it'll only happen in his dreams." Rachel and I spent a lot of time together at school, but we weren't safe from Mario's bullying. One day, we decided to go to a rocky hillside to sit beside the river and watch the sunset. I got our bikes ready and off we went down the road, laughing and talking. I had decided before this trip that I would tell her about my love for her. I chose this trip to tell her because it seemed like it would be an unforgettable moment, and it really was. After we arrived, I looked into her eyes, kneeled down on my knees, and gave her a present. Then I said, "I love you, Rachel." She was surprised to say the least and put her hand over her mouth. Then I suddenly heard a camera flash and a voice say, "Cut! Let's repeat this scene again." I looked around to see Mario and his gang. One of them was holding a camera. I shouted angrily, "What are you doing here? If you want to fight, I'm ready, but leave Rachel alone." I heard Rachel laughing, and it sent a chill down my spine, for she wasn't laughing in a joyful manner, but in a mocking one. Then she began clapping her hands and said, "You are really brave, Alex, but you are also an idiot." I froze. I couldn't believe my eyes when Rachel walked over and stood beside Mario, smiling. Mario said, "If you had asked around, you would have known that Rachel and I always welcome new students this way. You're our sucker of the week." I spat out, "You're all pigs." I punched him in the face, and he counterpunched me in the stomach. He said, "Do you realize how stupid you are?" I spit in his face, and he became enraged and pulled me towards him by my collar. Rachel tried to stop him. He threw me into the river. The last thing I remember as my head went under the water was Mario's derisive, self-satisfied laughter. When I woke up, I was lying on a wooden bed with an old man sitting beside me. He told me that I had been unconscious for 4 days. I asked him where I was and how I had gotten there. He told me that he found me unconscious floating in the river and that he had rescued me, saved me from drowning. I thought, oh my God, my parents must be so worried about me. I tried to get up and felt an excruciating pain that stopped me. I saw that my leg was broken and that the stranger had bandaged it as best he could. I asked him to call my family. He said he had no telephone, but he offered to visit my family and tell them what had happened and that I was okay. I told him that I would be so grateful if he could do so. I accepted his offer and thanked him. He returned with a newspaper in his hand and had a sad look on his face. I read the paper which said that I was presumed dead, having drowned in the river because they couldn't find my body. I was angry at Rachel and Mario, and also worried for my parents at the same time. I asked the man to please take me home. Then I crept into my home to see my parents sleeping. They were holding a photo of me and looked sad. I didn't wake them, but rather snuck over to Rachel's house. She was speaking on the phone, so I eavesdropped. She was saying, I didn't expect this to happen, but it's all good. Maybe he's in a better place now. What an idiot and a fool he was. Then she laughed. I was pretty upset to hear her mocking laughter without any regret whatsoever of being involved in causing my death. I returned home and encountered my father in the bathroom. When he saw me, he was initially startled and incredulous, but then I hugged him, and he began crying tears of joy. Then Mother woke up and I hugged her too. They asked me what had happened and I told them everything, but I asked them not to reveal that I wasn't dead yet. They asked me why, and I told them I would explain later. I decided to exact some sweet revenge on my would-be murderers. That night, I tacked a letter on Rachel's front door. The next day, she found it and read it. The scribbly handwriting said simply, I'm coming for you. It was signed, Alex's Ghost. After reading it, she immediately looked around to see if anyone was nearby who might have delivered the letter, but there was no one in sight. I sent this same letter to Mario and to each of his gang members too. I sent these letters on a daily basis for several days. Then one day, I took my scheme to the next step. I sent a letter to Mario with Rachel's forged signature and a letter to Rachel with Mario's forged signature. The letters told them to meet each other at the same site where they had killed me. I was hiding in the trees when they arrived. Rachel asked Mario, why did you want to meet me here? He replied, me? You asked me to meet you here. Rachel denied that she had done any such thing. Suddenly, I walked slowly out from the trees and said, I am the vindictive spirit of Alex's soul, and I have come to take my revenge on you two murderers. Suddenly frightened, they got down on their knees and pleaded with me to forgive them, and they said, we threw you in the river, but we didn't mean to kill you. It was an accident. Then a police car siren sounded, and a police car's blue lights began flashing, and several policemen came out from hiding in the trees. Having heard Mario and Rachel's confession, the police took them into custody. As Mario and Rachel were being escorted away, I said to them, now who's stupid, idiot?
I adore detective adventures and solving puzzles that others can't. I'm crazy about this. I love challenges and mysteries. I'm Ramon. But my father's nickname for me is Megamind. I'm 14 years old, and I'm typically ranked number 1 in my class every year. I have become famous for solving riddles. Many comers have tried to unseat me, but all have failed. I love to examine minute details. But let me get on with telling you my story. One hot summer, we had just finished our exams at school and were going on summer break. So I organized a trip to the beach with my friends. Beach weather is amazing. Clear skies, cool ocean breezes, sand, and sun. Just amazing. One day, before my beach trip, my mother handed me a letter from my grandmother. I was surprised and thought it was a little weird because Granny owned a hotel in the surrounding area nearby. It had wonderful views all around it. I had opened the letter, which read, Dear Ramon, how are you? I hope you're enjoying your summer break. Would you mind spending a couple of days with me? I have a serious matter that I would like to discuss with you. Granny. Initially, I thought that it was probably some silly matter, but then my inner voice told me that it might be important. I was conflicted between going on my beach trip or visiting my granny. I decided to visit Granny first. She was family after all. So off I went. Though my grandmother lived in a beautiful area, the closer I got to the hotel, the more my inner voice was nagging me. When I arrived at the hotel, Granny was waiting for me. She smiled and hugged me. I had missed her so much. She had company. Raul, her maintenance man, and Malika, her housekeeper and assistant. There weren't any guests in the hotel at the time, and I asked her why. Her face changed, and she said that was what she wanted to speak to me about. So we went to her room to talk. She then proceeded to tell me that the hotel was haunted. Haunted? I exclaimed. What makes you think that? Granny said, the hotel has evil spirits that frighten the guests at night. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew Granny was a rational person. I suspected there was more to this than meets the eye, so I decided to investigate this intriguing mystery. On my first night at the hotel, I waited until midnight. Then I lit a candle and walked through the halls of the hotel. There were photos on the wall, and I could hear whispering and the rustle of the leaves outside. It was a little spooky and unsettling, and made my blood run cold. Suddenly, I heard laughing on both sides of the hotel, and a shadow passed quickly in front of my eyes. Unnerved, I quickly returned to my room, where soon afterwards I heard something scratching on my door. I kept thinking to myself, I am not afraid. I am not afraid. Then the door began opening slowly. I saw a hand on the doorknob. Then the owner of the hand came into view. It was a cloaked, headless man holding a candle. I fainted. The next day, I woke up to find Granny and Malika standing beside me. Granny told me that I had been sleeping a long time. I asked what had happened, and they told me they heard me scream and came to my aid. When they found me, I was unconscious on the floor. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. It was Raul bringing me a drink. That was when I noticed something strange about Raul's face. It was emotionless. Then I glanced at his hands as I accepted the drink from him. That night, I again walked around the hotel. I found some steps at the end of a corridor that led to the basement. Down in the basement, I opened a maintenance door and found a tape recorder and a pile of clothes on a table. Suddenly, the lights went out. I was groping around in the dark and trying to find my way back when I heard the laughing again. Still, I continued stumbling ahead through the dark. I stepped on an electrical line and tore it off the wall. I returned to my room. My door opened slowly. I was hiding behind the door. I grabbed the loose electrical detonator and touched it to the doorknob. It was live, and I heard a grunt from the owner of the hand on the other side of the door as he or she was shocked. And I heard him or her fall to the floor. It took me a while to find the electrical panel, but I managed to get the lights back on. When I did, I found Raul laying unconscious on the floor next to the doorknob that I had electrified. I called Granny and Malika down to the basement. Granny asked what had happened. I replied, Granny, you really need to screen your employees better. Raul was your ghost. Granny looked shocked and asked me what made me think that. I explained that the hand on my drink today was the same hand I saw on the headless ghost